Scott Holiday here, and welcome back to Plus 2 Wrestling. Quick thing I wanted to bring up. I was looking back at some of my past videos and some of my past work, and I just want to say, I'm not this pale. There's something about the fact that the lights I have are white lights, and the fact that we're using the green screen that, takes all the color out of my face. So, Editor Mike, turn off the green screen and let people actually see what I look like. See? This is the level of pale I actually am. Anyway, let's plug in. Sunday, February 18th at 2 p.m. at the Mitchell Fire Hall in Burlington, New Jersey. It is Superpowers of Wrestling's The Boss Battles. There you will see Sonny Kiss attempt to wrestle away the SPO World Heavyweight Championship from Homicide. Plus, it is a scramble match as the Backseat Boys defend the SPO Tag Team Championships against the Silk City Kings, Golden Era, and The Rep, who are in a bad mood after Nate Wallace lost to Tommy Dreamer. Plus, see Wrecking Ball take on the Killdozer in a 2 out of 3 doors match. And I also learned that for every door broken, we're giving away a retro video game system. So be sure to join us Sunday, February 18th at the Mitchell Fire Hall in Burlington, New Jersey. You can get your tickets now at spowrestling.com. In March, I got a double dose of Combat Zone Wrestling for you. March 3rd, we return to our home in the beautiful State Theater in Havre de Grace, Maryland for Limelight 24. The doors open at 3, the bell rings at 4 o'clock, and you can get your tickets at czwrestling.com, and that is going to be just a little appetizer for what's coming next week. It is the biggest wrestling event in Maryland history. It is Don't Blink, taking place at the Power Plant, that's 35 Marketplace in Baltimore, Maryland. It is Don't Blink. The doors open at 6 o'clock, the bell rings at 7, and this is going to be something special. So do not miss the debut of Combat Zone Wrestling at the Power Plant Live in Baltimore, Maryland. Get those tickets now at czwrestling.com. And here's one you might not expect. Do you want to see cosplay pro wrestling, but you don't want to go to a convention? Well, first, go to a convention. They're really fun. But second, join us March 23rd for Cosplay Pro Wrestling at the Pine Grove Civic Association. That's 827 Jersey Avenue in Gloucester City, New Jersey, for all your favorite cosplay pro wrestlers. This is a charity event for Extra Life, which is a charity that raises money for children's hospitals. So be sure to join us March 23rd. The doors open at 12:30. The show starts at 1:30, and tickets are just $10 available at the door. I'll see you there. Today on the Soapbox, I got a bit of an interesting one for you. I was goofing around on Reddit, and I was just kind of looking through some of my past posts, and I found a post that I made 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, I asked R Squared Circle a very simple question. What is something that will never happen in the world of professional wrestling? And I figured, now that a decade's gone by, let's take a look. Let's look at some predictions of what will never happen from 10 years ago. So before we get into this, just a few things I want to point out. One, the most common thing that people were posting in this thread were Chris Benoit jokes. It was 2014. There's a lot of Chris Benoit jokes. I'm not reading all of them. But if you wanted to know if they were there, yeah, they were there. 2, Reddit doesn't really say when something was posted exactly. This says that it's 10 years old, and it will say that it is 10 years old until it's 11 years old. So I don't know exactly when this was posted. So this could be posted some point in 2013 maybe, or 2014. So we got a bit of a large span of when this could be posted, but we know that this is around the Cena wins lull era. This is when the streak was still alive. This is after CM Punk's historic reign, and this is before WrestleMania. So let's get into it. Gray area. So we're going to start with the ones that are neither correct nor incorrect. So when being asked what's something that will never happen, these are things that kind of happened. So I can't say that they got this on the nose or that they were just flat out wrong. They're somewhere in between. So let's look at these ones with some wiggle room. First, Cornette comes back to the WWE. That is correct in a sense. He's never worked for the WWE again. We've never seen him in a backstage role. He's never become an on-stage character. He has not managed anyone. But Jim Cornette did return to the WWE to induct the Rock and Roll Express into the Hall of Fame. Does that count? Not really. I mean, I saw him. He was willing to do something for the WWE, just not work there. 2, we have there being 3 weeks in a row of good episodes of Monday Night Raw. Debatable. I'm sure if you asked Simon Miller, we've had 3 episodes that were more ups than downs, but that's more subjective, so we'll skip over that one. Number 3, John Cena turns heel. He did do that little dance in the ring where he did a little heel turn, but I don't think that's what was meant by this statement. It's a very interesting situation in that John Cena never really changed character. He was always Mr. Hustle, loyalty, and respect. Never give up. Do it for the kids. Fruity Pebbles. He was always that guy. But if you listen to John Cena talk in interviews, he'll actually mention that there was a large portion of the crowd that booed him every time he went to the ring. And this is kind of the high point of this. This is like right after WrestleMania 29, where he beat The Rock in the Twice in a Lifetime match. And there was a lot of hatred for John Cena. And according to John, that was kind of on purpose. He was trying to split the audience. He was like Bret Hart back when he was a heel in America, but a face in Canada. John Cena was a heel to us dirty smarks and the biggest babyface to the children who bought merch. It's kind of a nice spot to have, so it's a bit of a gray area. Next we have an event with WWE versus TNA. Now I think what they meant by this is like an invasion storyline where we have the WWE on one side and TNA on another and they smash into each other. We never had that. However, the women's knockout champion from TNA has appeared in the Royal Rumble twice. We had Jordynne Grace this year, and a couple years ago we had Mickie James. So there has been actual conflict in ring between the WWE and TNA. I don't know if you want to count that. That's why it's in this section. This one, this is the one that I have to think about the most, and I need you to sound off in the comments about this. There will not be any new, innovative, popular specialty matches. Like since the debut of TLC and Hell in the Cell, there really hasn't been any big innovations. The last big innovations were the Elimination Chamber and the Scramble match, back when this was posted 10 years ago. And I really stopped and thought about it, and I don't know if there's been any really popular, innovative matches since then. And we're talking specifically about the WWE, but do you really count something like the Boneyard match as innovative? I mean, I think it was needed, but like the Firefly Funhouse, I wouldn't say is a popular innovation because we're not going to have any more of those. The only two I could really think of as new matches are one, the Iron Survivor Challenge, which has only happened in NXT. We didn't really have NXT 10 years ago, like not to the level that we have now. So I don't know if that counts as a WWE innovative match. And two, the Fight Pit. The Fight Pit started in NXT, and then it showed up in the WWE with Seth versus Riddle. It really was just a cage match with a little bit of Lion's Den thrown in, so I don't know if you want to call it a new match, but in the same respect, that would be saying that the Hell in a Cell match is nothing but a cage match with a roof. So do you want to count the Fight Pit as a new innovative match? I'm kind of on the fence. I really like the Fight Pit in NXT. I think there's been some good one. I didn't really care for the Riddle match, but I don't know. Maybe we got to wait and see if they use it again. And no, I'm not counting Raw Underground. I'm just not. And finally, this is one last thing that was put on here that I think is kind of funny, and that is the idea of Triple H putting over up-and-coming superstars. Now, he did put over Seth, and he did put over Roman, but I would say that their stars were already pretty up there when that happened, so I don't know if you want to call them up-and-coming superstars. I mean, like, I don't think what Triple H did for Curtis Axel really counts when he got that count-out victory over him because Triple H got tired and needed water. Remember that? That's a real thing that happened. But you could also say that Triple H puts over up-and-coming superstars every day with his current role in the WWE. Arguments on both sides, so it goes in the gray area. The things that happened. So these are the predictions that people said would never happen in the world of professional wrestling. And the world of professional wrestling was much smaller then. We had no AEW. So basically when we said professional wrestling, we meant WWE. Yeah, TNA and Impact existed. And of course there was Japan, but we basically meant the WWE. So these were the predictions that people thought would never happen and actually happened in a decade. First and foremost, which I think is one of the funniest ones, another 434-day title reign. At the time, the historic run of CM Punk was something that we thought would never happen again. The idea of someone holding a championship for over a year seemed astronomical. And now Roman Reigns has passed that number twice. So it's fun to think that, like, in the modern era, the idea of holding it for over a year, we'll never see that again. Sure we did. The second one's a bit of a cheat, and that was the idea of a woman winning the Royal Rumble. At the time, the only women that we had in the Royal Rumble were Chyna and Beth Phoenix. I think this would be before Karma's run, even, in the Royal Rumble. So the idea of a woman entering and winning seemed ridiculous. Then they ended up with their own Royal Rumble. So I think the spirit of that one was correct, but technically, we've had quite a few women win Royal Rumbles at this point. Next, we have Matt Hardy returns to the WWE. He's done that a few times. We thought for the longest time that we would never see Matt again because of the poor relationship he had with the WWE due to his extracurricular activities. But he came back, and Matt Hardy continues to go strong in the world of wrestling, currently in AEW. This is an interesting one that I can't believe people thought would never happen, but it happened very recently, and that is the induction of Andy Kaufman in the Hall of Fame. As soon as there was a celebrity wing in the Hall of Fame, Andy Kaufman is the first name that comes to my mind. Andy Kaufman should 100% be in the Hall of Fame. The only other names that like really jump out are Mr. T, who's of course in there, and Cyndi Lauper, who's not. Why isn't Cyndi Lauper in the Hall of Fame? I got more to go through. I'm trying to get through this quickly. Next, the idea that this would never happen seemed very true 10 years ago, and now it's an expected yearly event, and that is War Games in WWE. Vince McMahon notoriously hated War Games. It was Dusty's creation and a very WCW stipulation match. But Triple H loves War Games. So when it popped up in NXT, I wasn't that surprised because I know that at the time NXT was Triple H's baby, and you know, Dusty had done so much for NXT, it made sense for it to be in an NXT. But when it made the jump to Survivor Series, I was pretty stunned. And now we have a yearly War Games match. The thing that makes me really sad about it is the fact that Triple H never got to be in one. For all the accomplishments of Triple H, that's the one thing that I think will always elude him, is being in a War Games match. He's in a War Games match in one of the video games. There's a WWE SmackDown vs. Raw where at the end WWE gets destroyed by WCW, led by Nash and Rey Mysterio. And it ends with a War Games match that takes place in a Hell in a Cell.
Your best six against my best six inside Hell in a Cell.
That's the closest he ever got. Next one's mine. It's the one that I said would never happen. And that's the in-ring return of Jeff Jarrett in the WWE. Jeff Jarrett, of course, held up Vince McMahon for what we believe to be $250,000 right before his Good Housekeeping match for the Intercontinental Championship with China. He said, basically, pay me or I'm not going out there. You let my contract expire, so either you tell all those people that that match that we've been promoting for weeks isn't happening, or you pay me $250,000. And after you do that, you usually don't get to come back to the WWE. But Jeff Jarrett entered the Royal Rumble at number 2 to do funny stuff with Elias, something that I brought up in last week's video, which you can watch right here. Yeah, I think like up higher, because I'm small. It's up there. It's up there, though. That also goes with the next one, and that's the return of the Ultimate Warrior. The Ultimate Warrior had a terrible relationship with the WWE, also held Vince McMahon up for money. They actually had a whole DVD called The Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior. But they brought him back for the Hall of Fame. He showed up on Raw once, gave a speech, and died the next day. It's nice that that bridge was built before he passed away, but unfortunate nonetheless. We also have the idea of a returning Bill Goldberg. The idea of Bill Goldberg returning was ridiculous, the way he was treated in WWE. I mean, he did win the title, but he was never used the way that he was used in WCW, and Bill Goldberg has a very particular way of viewing professional wrestling. He wants it to be real, and he wants that Goldberg monster character. So what are they going to do? Have him come back and, like, squash Brock in 20 seconds? Yeah, they sure did. And then he came back and he's wrestled quite a few times in the WWE, but understandably, a decade ago seemed like an impossibility. The last two are interesting choices. One, the idea that Hulkamania will never die. Do people still like Hulk Hogan? I'm sure some people do, but I would say the idea that it's a Hulkamania, I think that's over. I don't think that's running wild anymore. And finally, a black babyface world champion. People believed at the time that if it was going to be a black champion, it was going to be a heel like Mark Henry. But we've actually had a couple. We had Kofi Kingston in Kofi Mania winning in the main event, sort of WrestleMania. Plus, we had Big E cash in and become world champion. So it's happened. It's happened. Things that have yet to happen. So these are the people that are correct. These are the people who said something that has not happened yet. Granted, the prompt is, what is something that will never happen in the world of wrestling? So all of these could be retrospectively incorrect depending on the course of history. But for now, these are things that have not yet happened. So these are the correct answers. Some of these are obvious. The execution of a 990 senton. Yeah, I don't think we're going to see that. Another bra and panties match? Probably not. Seems doubtful. Another Kennel from Hell match? God, I hope not. WWE having an exploding barbed wire death match? Seems very unlikely. We had one in AEW. Sort of. But the idea of that taking place in the WWE seems very, very unlikely. This is also a great slice of life of what life was like back in 2014. Because it's a lot of people believing in certain wrestlers and then wanting to cheer for them, but knowing they would never win the big one. There's a lot on here like, we will never see Bo Dallas as WWE champion. We will never see Justin Gabriel as WWE champion. We will never see Zack Ryder as WWE champion. I mean, back in 2014, you would hear "We Want Ryder" chants everywhere the WWE went, and they just refused to give him the ball. The closest that Zack Ryder's ever came to the WWE Championship is on Raw, where he wrestled Sheamus when Sheamus was champion and got to pick his own challenger. So he picked Zack Ryder as a joke. That's the closest he's ever come. And that's a shame because now he doesn't even work for the WWE. He's too busy being in the independents, winning title after title after title after title, but never the WWE Championship. The idea of having a female WWE champ, that's never happened. I don't think it ever will. Was thinking, what does it take for WWE to eventually do intergender wrestling? And the answer to that question is, a woman needs to get so high on the ladder that a man needs to wrestle them for their sake, for their star quality. And Becky got close. When Becky was doing the man run originally, Becky was the biggest star in the WWE. And I thought we were kind of getting close with what was going on with Baron Corbin and such, that we were going to have some intergender wrestling, which would then lead to possibly women wrestling for men's titles. But if that's going to happen, it seems to be far, far off. This is one that I find especially interesting, especially at the time. This is right before the streak is broken, and there were a couple people who said Sting versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania. And I remember WrestleMania 30 not caring about Brock versus Taker because Sting and Undertaker was next year. That was clearly where they were going to go. And this was just kind of filler to get to that match. But there were already people that were like, they're never going to let it happen. And it never happened, despite the fact that Sting really, really wanted it. So a decade ago, we were still a really pessimistic bunch. There's a little bit of information for you. This is one that I found very interesting. A recognized and actual Japanese WWE champion. I thought it happened. I thought that Nakamura did it. And then I looked back and I was like, no, AJ beat him every time. Or they double disqualifications with kicks to the balls. But now Nakamura is kind of cooled, so I don't know if he's ever going to get that opportunity again. And I don't know what Tozawa's doing, but I don't think the Alpha Academy is going to make him a main eventer anytime soon. Maybe if Okada shows up, but for now it doesn't look like that's in the cards anytime soon. The idea of WWE bringing back WCW as a brand extension, like they did with ECW back in the day, that's never happened. We've got a little bit of crossover. We've had the Great American Bash and a couple Starrcades, but we've never brought it back as a brand. The idea, this is interesting, of an openly gay WWE champion. I mean, there's been very few openly gay wrestlers. I mean, the last one that I can think of is Darren Young, and I like Darren Young, but Bob Backlund couldn't make him great. I don't think he's going to be WWE champion anytime soon, but the world is changing. I think that this is one that we'll eventually see, but I could understand why 10 years ago it seemed impossible. And lastly, this is the one that's really stuck out to me as something that's always been in the back of my mind. And that's John Cena tapping out. It's already happened. It happened on like a Velocity years and years and years ago. But we always believed 10 years ago that the idea of John Cena finally tapping out, Mr. Never Give Up, quitting, that would be a great way for John Cena to retire and give a real gift to someone who was on the way up. Like, what a feather in the cap to be the one that made John Cena tap. And it still sounds great, but who has a submission finisher anymore? Where did all the submissions go? There's barely any submission finishers anymore. Unless we see John Cena tapping out to the Oscar lock or the figure eight, I don't think John Cena is going to come back and tap anytime soon. So there you have it, some predictions of things that would never happen made 10 years ago. Let's go around again. Leave something you think will never happen in the comments down below. And in a decade, I'll read your comments here on this show. Who's excited for 2034? Anyone? In any case, thank you so much for joining me once again for Plus 2 Wrestling. If you're having a good time, be sure to subscribe so you'll get a notification next time I upload one of these. And you know what? I hope you have a great day.